Welcome to EnfinityCast. Today, we're wading into some deep and, let's be honest, often murky waters. We're talking about postmodernism. It's a word that gets thrown around a lot, often as a criticism. But what does it actually mean? What happens to a society, to an individual, when the grand unifying stories we've told ourselves for centuries begin to feel, well, hollow? Here to help me navigate this intellectual landscape is my brilliant co-host, Marin.
Thanks, Niko. It's a big topic, and that feeling you mentioned, that hollowness, is central to it. The philosopher Jean-Francois Lyotard called it the postmodern condition, which he famously defined as incredulity toward meta-narratives.
Meta-narratives. Let's break that down. These are the big, overarching stories, right? The stories about stories that claim to explain everything?
Exactly. Think of the Enlightenment story of inevitable progress through reason and science, or the Christian story of sin and salvation, or even the Marxist story of class struggle leading to a utopian revolution. Postmodernism doesn't necessarily say these stories are wrong, but it grows deeply suspicious of any single story that claims to hold the universal truth for everyone, everywhere, for all time. It sees them as just that, stories.
And this is where thinkers like Jacques Derrida come in, with his concept of deconstruction. It sounds destructive, but it's more like being a careful architect, isn't it? Taking apart a building not to demolish it, but to see how it was constructed, what ideas are holding it up, and what it might be hiding in the foundations.
That's a perfect analogy. Derrida was fascinated with language, particularly with binary oppositions. Good versus evil, rational versus emotional, man versus woman. He pointed out that in our thinking, one of these terms is always seen as superior, as the default, and the other as secondary. Deconstruction exposes that hidden hierarchy. It reveals the cracks in the logic we take for granted.
And these hierarchies aren't just abstract ideas. They have real-world consequences. This feels like a good place to bring in Michel Foucault.
Absolutely. Foucault took this critique into the realm of power. For him, knowledge and power are inseparable. They aren't two different things. They create each other. The truths a society operates on about medicine, law, sexuality, sanity are produced by institutions of power. Think about how the definition of insanity has changed over the centuries. It wasn't a purely medical discovery. It was also a way for society to define what was normal and control those who fell outside that definition.
So this leads to the biggest and perhaps most frightening question that people have about postmodernism. If truth is constructed by power and language is unstable, does that mean there's no truth at all? Is everything just a matter of opinion?
That's the common misunderstanding. So postmodernists aren't saying that there's no reality or that a falling rock won't hurt you. They're making a more subtle point. They're asking us to move from a belief in a single capital T truth, universal, objective, and handed down from on high, to an understanding of multiple lowercase t truths. These truths are local, they're contextual, they're shaped by our culture and our language. The goal isn't to abandon truth, but to be relentlessly critical and ask, whose truth and who does it serve?
It replaces a comforting certainty with a much more demanding responsibility then. A responsibility to question, to analyze, and to understand the perspectives of others. So if the grand narratives are gone, the question that's left for us, living in this truth after truth world, is this: what stories do we now choose to build our own meaning from? Something to reflect on. Marin, thank you as always.
My pleasure, Niko.
Join us next time on EnfinityCast as we continue to explore the ideas that shape our world.